This is Jake Snyder from Minus the Bear, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Midnight on the beach in the Mediterranean.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we are back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Dave Collis, vocalist and guitar player of the band Slow Mass. Slow Mass are a Chicago band that blend elements of indie, shoegaze, and post-hardcore. They're not a super easy band to define genre-wise, and I like that. They're a great band with a unique sound, and they just released an excellent new LP this year called Low on Foot. And we talked to Dave about the making of that record, his upbringing in Philadelphia, the history of Slow Mass, and a whole lot more. It's a great conversation, and that is coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Death Wish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. The Casket Lottery just released a new single and video for their song From Now to Now. That's from their forthcoming LP Feel the Teeth, which will be out August 29th. While cleaning out the warehouse, Iodine has located a small box of Bucket Full of Teeth's 2X LP discography. This has been sold out for over a year. There's 5 copies up in the store. Go check right now to see if one is still available and grab it. The Drought record release show for their debut LP Souvenir will be taking place Saturday, August 9th at The Parkside. That's at 1600 17th Street in San Francisco, California. Show starts at 8 and it's a great lineup. For more information, head to iodinerecordings.com, sign up for the newsletter, you'll find out about everything first, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And say hello to our sponsor for the month of August, Evil Greed. In addition to their online store, Evil Greed offers tour merch handling, and logistics services for tons of bands. They also offer merch and distribution solutions for bands and record labels in Europe and the UK. Evil Greed has a carefully selected roster of artists and labels in their online store. They offer very reasonable worldwide shipping rates specifically to the UK and the USA. Make sure you head to evilgreed.com. Let's see what we've got going on this week. We've got featured merch from Blood Incantation, Brutus, Bell Witch, Gulch. We've got featured music from Fleshwater. They have a new LP coming out called 2000, In Search of the Endless Sky. That's up for pre-order. We've got Flesh Stays Together. That's the new LP from Dying Wish. That's up for pre-order. We've got a new LP from Restraining Order called Future Fortune. That's up for pre-order. Let's check out some Evil Greed exclusives. The new LP from Der Weg Einar Freiheit called Inern. There's an LP and t-shirt bundle available. We've got a 12-inch from Sanction, The Infringement of God's Plan. The new LP from Scowl, Are We All Angels? That's available from Evil Greed. We've got a split LP from Pain of Truth and Tsunami. Have a Nice Life, The Void's 2X LP. That's marked down from €34.99 to €24.99. You've got to pick that up. And we've got other exclusives from Magnitude, Bell Witch, Incendiary, Chat Pile. Evil Greed has it all. For more information, head to evilgreed.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can follow them on Instagram at evil_greed. Okay, so check back in with me. In segment 3, we'll do a wrap-up of the conversation with Dave. I'll tell you everything that's going on with me. I was in Woodstock last week to catch Hot Water Music and Walter Schreifel's live. I'll tell you about that. I'll recap that show. We'll check in. We'll cover everything. But right now, we are going to speak to Dave Collis of Slow Mass. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Dave Collis. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here, Dave. I recently discovered Slow Mass through a mutual friend, Don DeVore. He mentioned you, and then I And then I was like, oh yeah, I got to check this out. And Slow Mass just recently put out an excellent new LP called Low on Foot. And we're going to talk about that and a lot of other things. But first, Dave, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah. Just finished up work and spent like the last half of my day listening to like a Fela Kuti playlist. So like I feel in a pretty good mood. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Well, I had to go pick up a rental car earlier, which was annoying because I live in Brooklyn and traffic. And I
Yeah.
have to drive to Massachusetts tomorrow at like 3 a.m., which is going to suck. But listen, these are the things we have to do for work. But otherwise, I'm doing pretty good. There's some decent things happening as well.
Mhm.
You live in Chicago?
I do live in Chicago. Yes.
What do you do for your job?
I work in tech. I used to do like music booking stuff, but it's kind of nice separating your creative endeavors from your professional endeavors. So yeah.
Nice. I'm tech adjacent. Let's say I work with tech companies and other companies. I'm a consultant.
Sure.
So I will recommend things to people. Yeah, I've always had that separation. So it's all I know. I've never worked like full time in the music business.
Yeah, I mean, I did for the longest time booking venues, and let's just say it's really nice going to a show and not, counting other people's money or guesstimating how many people are there, or every time you think of a band, thinking about how much they're worth. It's nice to just enjoy it for the sake of enjoying it.
Where did you book?
I worked for a company called Kickstand, so Kickstand booked Beat Kitchen and Subterranean, and a bunch of other venues in Chicago. So, yeah, anywhere from like 100 cap to 700 cap rooms.
How long did you do that for?
That was, well, I booked DIY shows for the longest time, but probably booked DIY shows for about 5 or so years before I got that as a job offer. And then was at a pretty unique like transitional phase in between other work where it kind of made sense to do that. So I did that for about 6 years afterwards.
Did it make you very jaded on music as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like navigating any aspect of like a creative industry will make you jaded at whatever that creative endeavor is. So I don't think it's anything unique to music. I think if you're in film, if you're in photography, if you're in podcasting, whatever, like as soon as you try to push back or try to push through your creation to a larger audience or whatever it may be, you start to navigate a lot of things that, yeah, just make it unfun. But it's nice having the removal now. So I'm thankful for my time, but I'm thankful to not be doing it.
Have you ever worked with a band who you really liked, and then you found out who they really were, and then you never wanted to listen to them again?
I'll be honest. I don't know if I really had like a situation like that. Like it was either like I had close to zero contact or interaction with the band, or if I did, they generally were the nicest, sweetest people. And any band that I was super excited about working with, I usually had like one or two friends removed who knew them and spoke fondly of them. So that maybe was like a filter process for preventing that type of interaction, you said.
Yeah, I guess you're mostly working with managers and booking agents and that type of thing, right?
To an extent. I mean, because I also came from booking like house shows and stuff, I knew a lot of the bands directly. And then with Slow Mass touring and my prior bands touring, a lot of it was kind of bands direct, at least on the smaller level.
So you grew up in Philadelphia.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
When were you born? How old are you, if you don't mind my asking?
Yeah, no, I am going to be 33 in a couple months. I was born in 92.
Okay, so I've got 10 years on you. Exactly 10 years. Okay. Well,
Oh,
not
really?
exactly, but
Close enough.
I
Yeah.
I like to see when and where people came up, you know what I mean? So where did you grow up, in the city, suburbs? Where?
I grew up in the city. I'm blanking on the neighborhood, but basically the edge of West Philly. Like if you took the train all the way to the 69th Street terminal and then went further towards City Line Ave, pretty much that sort of neighborhood, like bordering on, God, why am I blanking on it? In short, I had met someone in Chicago later on who we found out that we both grew up like roughly 2 miles from each other. And if you like looked at the map, it was like his house, City Line Ave, my parents' house. Like that's how close I was to the edge of the city. But I went to school, like high school and stuff, in Fishtown. So spent a lot of formative years like wandering around the city and stuff, getting into trouble.
Yes, same here. Um, how about your history with music? Is it something you've always been interested in?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, first guitar, Tom DeLonge Squire, learning Blink-182 tab books. And then I did an after school music program for a while. That was roughly 2004 or 5 until like the end of 2009, 2010. And that, I mean, it's interesting lately, like discussing that, because there was like a article that came out a couple months ago about how abusive the instructor was at said school. So it's been like an interesting like reflection point like lately in my life, thinking about my youth and music education and stuff like that. But yeah, I had some music instructors from that school who I remained close with, and they were very influential in terms of turning me on to, like, when you're like learning music, everything is whatever, like the Stones, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, classic rock stuff, and then there was like some like prog things like Yes and King Crimson and Zappa that were thrown on. But these like music instructors were the people that were like, oh, here's this heat, here's Discord Records, here's Afrobeat music, here's Philip Glass, here's Steve Reich, here's Brian Eno, like, and getting me kind of more into a unique array of musical outliers and alternative experimental genres. So yeah, and then that kind of just like bled through until today, for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I figured based on the sound of Slow Mass that you had a pretty eclectic music background. Me, I discovered, well, the alternative music boom in like 92, that was a big thing for me. And then nu metal was popping off once I was in like 9th and 10th grade. And I was getting really into that. But then shortly after that, I discovered hardcore, and you had like Converge, Cave In, Botch, Dillinger Escape Plan popping off, and then that was it for a while. And I've gone in all kinds of directions: hardcore, post rock, emo, you name it. How about you? Is there like one particular thing you like, or are you all over the map?
It's pretty all over. I would definitely say kind of day to day mood changing. Like, I mean, today, if I'm thinking about like what I would listen to, I had a Shoo record on earlier. Then I put on this album Bursting, this like new Chicago band that features Tyler, who plays in Thou. It's like his newer band. It sounds a lot like Shiner and Farrakhan. So I listened to that earlier, and then like the Fela Kuti playlist, so. And I also bought like a Jim O'Rourke ambient record that came in the mail today. So it just truly kind of, sometimes I feel, I'll be like in a genre or two, like focusing, but it just kind of floats around.
Yeah. For me lately, it's mostly been ambient, because that's the only type of music I can have on and actually focus on working without getting distracted.
You would probably like this Jim O'Rourke record I just got. Let me pull it for you.
Yeah, let's see this. For
You-
our
you-
podcast only listeners, you have to get on YouTube. We've got visual aids.
Bad radio content here. Yeah, this is great YouTube content. This is bad radio.
Yeah.
Two Organs by Jim O'Rourke.
Hmm.
On his, like, he does that like Steam Room Bandcamp where it's like a collection of like his random archives. I forget what one of them is, this record, but it's just two long 20-minute pieces each of like I think the first piece is called Two Organs, the next piece is called Two More Organs. And yeah, I don't know. It's a beautiful record. I love it a lot. I've wanted to grab a copy and now I have it.
Nice. So you're in music school. Do you have a background? Like, can you read music and you have some intricate knowledge of it?
I used to remedially read music, so that was not as strong of my education. It was like much more like scales and technique, and that, you know, obviously like ties into kind of like songwriting and understanding how like song structures are linked together, whatever, you know, key arrangement it is. Like, it definitely helped with time with like, you know, needing to learn certain songs when you understand, oh, this is roughly in this key in G major or G minor or whatever it is, and then you futz around on the chords and you could kind of see how all the pieces fall together. I learned to read music a little bit. If I had like a notation staff and had to read, I could do kind of like a, you know, baby steps terms of like figure out where the first note is and then like count my way through it and do that. But I wouldn't really consider that reading, you know. Yeah, but then I also took drum lessons while I was learning guitar. So, you know, I haven't practiced the technique aspect of any of it, but all of it definitely, like, it becomes very kind of like riding a bicycle muscle memory. It's just sort of in the background, and if anything, it helps me kind of like notice patterns similar to songwriting in terms of technique stuff and things.
Right. I feel like if you can play an instrument, you can do something on any instrument. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible piano player, but because I could play guitar, I can stumble my way through a piano part, or I can overdub 6 piano tracks to sound like a competent piano player, you know.
Exactly. I can do that. I want to be able to play piano so bad, like a real piano player where they can do one thing with one hand and then a whole thing with a whole other hand. But I can only do like maybe 3 keys at a time, or like you said, if I could like piece together something if I needed to.
I took lessons during the pandemic, like briefly from a friend in town. So I was on a similar tip as you. It was like, I'm going to become confident. I'm going to like guitar. I want to sit down and just like instantly know how to like play certain things, and then totally got fucking sidetracked and you know, like,
yeah, I want to just like walk. I want to like walk to a piano and just sit down and start playing it, right? And then it'll be like, oh wow, this is so cool. But actually, a guy started doing that. There's this thing I go to every week, right? It's in public, and there's a piano there, and a guy sat down and started playing it. And the first time it was charming, but then he did it like every day for 2 years. And now I'm just fucking annoyed. I'm like trying to have a conversation, and this guy's banging away on the piano, and I'm like, would you shut up?
That's funny. That's good.
So that sort of killed that dream. But did you start playing in bands in Philly?
Yeah. Like I had some, I feel like everybody in high school has a band that gets like one demo and one show and then fizzles out. You know, I had a bunch of those in a row of just 1 to 2 shows, one shitty demo, and kind of moving on. And then I was like briefly playing in this Philly band called Tongue Sculptors that I like joined the summer before I moved away, and kind of did it sort of long distance for another like year or so. It was very kind of like Dirty Projectors adjacent sounding.
What kind of venues did you play in Philly?
You know, like a lot of DIY spaces, a lot of galleries. Like there was Danger Gallery in West Philly that I played a bunch. There's some stuff like in like house shows in West Philly, house shows in South Philly. I think only venue show that I played with them was like opening up for Joan of Arc at Johnny Brenda's. But otherwise, yeah, a lot more DIY stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I was in a band in the mid-aughts. So where would we play? The Fire, Khyber, when that was still a thing.
Yeah.
Brownies in West Philly, I think we played before.
I don't know Brownies.
North Star Bar. I don't know if
Yes.
that place is still around.
I don't think it is. Yeah. I think the Fire is still there. I don't know about the Khyber. Johnny Brenda's is obviously still there. Danger shut down in like 2011, 2012 or something like that.
When did you move to Chicago? What year?
I moved here in September of 2010
Why did you move there?
for school. So I went to Columbia College of Chicago for an audio design and production degree. So music recording.
Okay. And did you end up finishing? Did you get the degree?
I did get the degree. I got the degree while also hating music recording. So I finished. I like had sometimes in high school you can do certain classes where you can get like a college credit or two knocked out of the way. So I did that I was able to graduate early. But yeah, by the end, I was just like so broke, and every student is so broke. But I think in particular with music, there's very few opportunities to make money immediately with it, which is understandable. But I felt like the people who were thriving in the program were either students who didn't have to work and could do an internship somewhere, or didn't have to worry about rent and could buy all their recording gear that their hearts desire. And I had no money and no time because every moment in between classes I was working. So I just was broke and tired and resentful of everyone that was, succeeding in it. So I didn't really do it for the longest time after. It really wasn't until like the pandemic that I kind of had time, space, and money to like really dive back in properly.
Yeah, all the people who were doing just fine, their parents' names are blue on Wikipedia. So
Sure.
that's usually the way it goes. Did you like recording? What did you do? Recording, mixing, engineering? What's your thing?
I've done like all of those. Like basically the way I fell back into it was with the pandemic and not having to work. I just treated music as a 9 to 5. So our practice space, I set it up fully where because we're not playing shows and we're not taking anything out of the space, I can have every instrument mic'd up 24/7 and set up in place, and kind of had everything in a permanent state ready to record as demos would come about. So I was just continuously doing that throughout the pandemic, and learning, troubleshooting, figuring out why certain things don't sound good. Figuring out I need to add this and this, I need to do this and this, and kind of just slowly chipping away and getting better and better at and more comfortable with tracking and mixing and stuff like that.
Okay. Do you like it still? Do you enjoy doing it?
I do like it still. I think I really don't like setting up like in general. Like I don't like taking mics out and plugging things in. I like, playing shows. Like I don't really care for setting up equipment or like breaking down equipment. But once you're in it and you're like in the moment, then it's absolutely amazing. And obviously then all that work prior is worth it for it. And all the work after is an accomplished feeling. But no, I still enjoyed a bunch.
Yeah, setting up I hate because it takes a long time, and
Yes.
I usually feel a lot of pressure. And breaking down I hate even more because after I play a show, it's very intense. and I don't know where I am or what I'm doing. And I'm kind of in a daze. Like, do I unplug this? Do I move this? And then someone will be like, hurry up. And I'm like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on. So it's not fun. But the playing is fun. Playing is fun.
Yeah.
All right. So you get to Chicago. At what point do you start playing? How do you get situated? How do you meet people? Like, tell us some of that.
Yeah. So a couple friends that I met through school were regularly going to shows. So I was brought to different house shows or warehouses and stuff like that throughout the city. And it's kind of funny, like, you know how you were talking about you discovering like hardcore and emo and stuff like that. Like I felt like because of my music school experience, I wasn't really exposed to that type of stuff until I moved out here. And then all of a sudden it's like going to warehouse shows and seeing bands like Grown Ups or Castavet, or going to hardcore shows and seeing Weekend Nachos and Harm's Way or whatever it may be. And just like, you know, kind of more and more, there was a thing called DIY Chai for the longest time. That was like an online show listing archive. So if you wanted to look up what's happening that week, or if you were a promoter and wanted to submit your show and have it listed on there, like that was a great resource that sadly doesn't exist anymore. I'm trying to think of like how I got like fully integrated to an extent. I think there was just like a certain point where I was just hitting people up, trying to help friends that I knew in Philly with shows in Chicago. And that pipeline sort of helped me like meet more people. And then I started doing sort of the opposite, where I was helping Chicago bands with shows in Philly and kind of connecting there. And that definitely helped me get a lot more integrated within the community and meeting a lot more people.
Yeah, that 2010 specifically, I remember that being a really good time for bands. I was going to ask you specifically if you had seen Castavet before. I love that band. I still listen to them on a very regular basis.
They're great. I later on played in a band called Stay Asleep with Nick from Castavet, but that's like His Hero Is Gone, Converge kind of sounding stuff. Like,
nice.
Nick's also a very eclectic individual, so he can write, you know, beautiful Appleseed Cast, Small Brown Bike emo, and then also like Neurosis riffs, you know.
I got to check that out. Yeah, I saw them before. I don't really remember it because it was 15 years ago or something, and I'm sure I was drunk or high or both at the show, but
Sure.
But it was a great show. It was Castavet, Everyone Everywhere, Into It, Over It.
Stay Ahead of the Weather tour.
Yes, At the Fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was an amazing show.
Yeah,
I remember some of it. Did you have anything to do with that show?
I had nothing to do with that show. I just because that was a time when I was bouncing back and forth between Philly a bit more and being aware of Chicago bands. I just certain shows like that stick in my memory as kind of like the pipeline between the two.
That was a good one. Yeah, that was a good time. That was when I discovered. So Slow Masket started around 2015.
Yeah, I'd say like the initial seeds of it started in 2014 with I used to play in a band called My Dad, and that band was kind of very slowly breaking up over the course of that year. And I had met Josh Sparks, who drums in Slow Mass, that summer, and we started jamming together. And it was kind of basically after the final My Dad tour, realizing to kind of like put that project to rest and starting something new with Sparks. Yeah, like beginning of 2015 is sort of like maybe the proper like restart moment.
What happened with the other band, and how much touring were you doing?
Not that much. I mean, so that band I was doing throughout college. So you're doing weekenders during the semester. You have, you know, enough time and money to do like 2 weeks, you know, during the summer, something like that. That one in particular, we were doing a month. It's kind of funny to think about it now, but it was a month-long tour going to hit CMJ in New York, and Fest in Florida and circling back. So like a lot of young bands, when no one knows you, you book every city as close together as possible. So you're spending as little money on gas and everything because you're not going to make as much money. So now it's like an insane thing to think about, like, oh, how did we do like a month on just the East Coast? And it's like, because like, every day the drive was only like 2 hours or something like that, like something absurd. But that one, like my dad basically came to like fizzled out because it was my solo thing that I was trying to expand with other members. And I think first off, like there was kind of like a rotating cast of drummers, and then the different drummers started branching out, wanting to do other stuff. One of them in particular was Namdi Obanaya, who goes by, or his solo stuff is Namdi. He's put out stuff on Secretly Canadian and Super Records. And he was focusing on his solo music at the time. And it was basically left to me and the bassist. And I think it's just kind of a classic example of two people that had known each other since they were children and fighting and arguing. And, you're just kind of realizing like, oh, it's maybe we should not be creative partners anymore. Like if we are going to have any sort of friendship, we should probably like take this stress bubble out of our life.
So you meet Josh Sparks and then you decide to start the new band, Slow Mass.
Yeah. So that like, took a couple demo ideas that I was planning for the next My Dad release and put it towards that. We then brought in, so Sparks at that time was playing in the Into It Over It full band, and he had also played in that band Former Thieves that were on No Sleep Records. So we brought in Josh Parks, who was also in Into It Over It and used to be in Former Thieves with Josh Sparks. So he was brought to the fold. Parks brought in Mercedes, who sings and plays bass in the band. And yeah, I would say by the spring, we had like the initial lineup, and then we're just continuing to write, pretty much until we played our first show that fall.
And what's going on with you at the time? I mean, are you recording bands to try and make money? Did you want to do music full time? Did you have something else in mind? Like, what's going on with you?
No, I wasn't. Like I said, I wasn't recording stuff like full time or regularly until like the pandemic. Like, I graduated college at the end of 2013 and was not doing any real sorts of recording at all. I was working like restaurants and really odd jobs. But I will say, like, yeah, I started the booking job similar around the time that Slow Mass started. So that was kind of, like an interesting transition for both of those things to kind of begin simultaneously. Young, being whatever, 23, 24, had a, first long-term relationship end at that time. So I think that kind of influenced a lot of the lyrical content. But starting that, and especially a lot of like our discussions as a group at that time, it was definitely the first band where I felt that everyone was on the same page and very serious about long-term discussions about what the future of the band could be, what we could potentially do, like what we want to accomplish. So that just made like, I think that's what gave the band like a lot of momentum out the gate was, this shared drive.
How about some of your influences and some of the band influences? Like, did you talk about that all when you were initially demoing or when everyone else was coming in?
Yeah. So like me and Sparks. So Sparks had lived in Minneapolis prior to moving to Chicago, and I was just getting into this band, or I had been in listening to this band for a couple of years called Self Evident from Minneapolis. So like one of the first conversations we, started talking about it was like, oh, do you know that band? Oh my God, isn't that band amazing? Like, I love this song and this record and this thing that they do. And we talked about that a bunch. We talked about this band from Lawrence, Kansas called Muscle Worship that we both were really excited about. And yeah, then just like various things like Fugazi and Unwound and Farrakhan or Dismemberment Plan, Shiner, kind of a lot of that sort of like late 90s, early 2000s post-hardcore adjacent world of Discord and DeSoto and whatever.
That makes sense, because when I heard Slow Mass, I was like, I like this. And when I hear that list of influences, I'm like, yes, I like this.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah, when my current band got together, we had no plan, and we were just like, what's a band we all like? Ink and Dagger. Okay. And then we wrote a song that sounded like Ink and Dagger. Speaking of, that's how I first heard of you, from Don DeVore. How do you know him? How did you meet him?
Yeah, so Don I met because he produced that Super Unison record in Chicago that Steve Albini recorded. So I knew JR the drummer a little bit from like mutual friends in Philly, and when they came out, JR and Kevin in the band and Don stayed with me, and Meg stayed with another friend. So not only was that my first time meeting Don, but then I'm like in these hour-long intense conversations with Don and Kevin, like rambling on and on about their interaction with Albini that day, or you know, whatever stuff. I mean, you've had Don on the show. He's like, I think the way I describe Don is like, I feel like he's like an alien. Like he doesn't speak like he has, you know, a stutter or like an impairment or something. He has like the most unique way that he talks, and then his brain just everything about him, I'm like, he has to be a fucking alien. And I think he's such a unique character.
Yeah, I think I've heard that descriptor or savant, or just like on his own wavelength type of thing. Did you know his bands at all before you met him?
Oh yeah, definitely was a fan of Ink and Dagger. I wasn't familiar with too much with like the Icarus line or Collapse and Scenery, his current thing. And yeah, and then I honestly, the only way I at the time knew about Frail was from him telling me like Frail tour stories. So I probably like got more into Frail with like the Numero catalog reissue, and then stayed in touch, helped put him in contact with people who booked their Chicago show that they just played a month ago, and also brought Frail in to record like a live session at the like practice-based studio that Slow Mass is a part of. So I'm like almost done mixing that, and hopefully we'll have a cool live Frail session coming.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I caught the reunion show in Philly, which was a real trip. I didn't listen to them a lot back in the day, somewhat. Once like music downloading became a real thing in 2003 and stuff, because, you know, then you could just go on and find whatever you want and listen to it. But huge Ink and Dagger fan. They were a big influence for me. And yeah, that's how I first heard Slow Mass, because Don texted me the band and he was like, your band should play with these guys. And I was like, yeah, all right, let's do it.
Cool. Hell yeah.
So Slow Mass gets rolling. We released the debut EP in 2016 and the debut LP On Watch in 2018.
Yep.
What did you do? Did you tour a lot? Did you just go out and play as much as you could? Like, what was some of the early trajectory of the band?
Yeah. So we did like, you know, maybe like a 2 weeks or so, also similar like East Coast, Midwest, for the EP. And then throughout that following year, just kind of like sporadic, you know, cool support things. Like we did a small run with The World is a Beautiful Place. We did like almost 3 weeks with Me Without You and Pianos Become the Teeth. Yeah, and all of that was in response to the EP, and I had never done like proper support touring before that, so it was a very new and unique experience. Yeah, and then following that with the LP, did very similar stuff, like East Coast shows with Ovlov and Mannequin Pussy, then did West Coast with Super Unison, like a full US with La Dispute and Gouge Away. And yeah, tried to do a lot, but also not nearly grinding as hard as some other bands where they're gone like half of the year or something like that. Like we would try to play regularly where it's important and meaningful and keep our schedules open so that if something cool comes along, like we're able to do it and we're not like burned out too quickly. The last thing we wanted to do was be one of those bands that has one or two releases and breaks up a year later because they grinded too hard.
Yeah, that's something I'm figuring out. Part of me is like, oh, I want to get out there and play as much as I can all the time. But the other part of me is like, wait, my band is like all in their 40s and has full-time jobs, and everyone can't do that realistically. Plus, it like what you're saying, it also seems like you kind of want to do things strategically, right?
Strategically definitely was like the main center point. But then also like the job thing was definitely a part of it. I think it's really hard to expect bands to be able to tour crazy unless they've got like serious fire or momentum under them. And even some bands these days that like, one would think are doing crazy, doing super well, talk to those friends and they're definitely living paycheck to paycheck still. And yeah, it just didn't seem reasonable. We had another drummer at the time so Sparks briefly left to join Minus the Bear for a couple years, and we had a different drummer in between, and he was a teacher at DePaul in Chicago, so we could only really do so much around his schedule. Parks' jobs stuff got a bit crazier, so we had some like fill-in member things. Yeah, it was definitely strategic but piecemeal in a weird way.
How did Sparks end up back in the band?
Yeah, in a very serendipitous way. So my friend David joined after Sparks had left, and David, was all in and stoked. And then I think he just kind of, as we were doing more and more, realized that it was not a right fit for him in his life, especially with teaching and things. Like, I think he was having a hard time striking the balance, which totally understandable. So he, towards the end of 2018, was coming to a place to realize that he didn't want to do the band anymore. Talked about it, made a lot of sense. And also, I already knew that Minus the Bear was about to do their farewell tour. And so I just kind of texted Sparks and I was like, hey, we have a West Coast tour booked for January. I know this other tour you're on ends in December. Like, do you want to do it with us? And he was stoked and excited, and yeah, it just kind of fell into place.
Nice. Was that hard to watch him go on to play with Minus the Bear?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's funny now. Like, I'm, with age, you're so much more immature at that time, where you take certain things way more personal, and yeah, at that time I was hurtful because of, oh, I thought we were talking about the long-term future of the band and blah, 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 and all these things. And, fuck me and forget what I was feeling at that time. Like, that was such an amazing opportunity for him. And, I, over the years, have gotten to know them as people, and they're just wonderful sweethearts. And having him do the reunion with them that, is happening later this year is super exciting. Like, him being a part of the press photos and the rollout, like, makes me really happy and proud to see. So like, yeah, it was hard at the time, and in the long term, I'm so happy for him, and I think it's such a wonderful thing. And I'm biased, in which my favorite Minus the Bear release is the farewell live album that he plays on. So that's great.
Yeah, if I'm young, I'd be really mad that he left,
of course.
And then like maybe never talk to him again, and then maybe like make a huge deal out of it. Now at 43, I'd be mad, but I'd understand.
I was definitely more in the mad but understand camp. I was not at the point where I was like, fuck you, we're not talking. It was It was definitely mad, but I totally got it. Yeah.
That's good. I have found that I'm also much more immature than other people. I've done a lot of growing up in the past 10 years, so it took a while, but I got there. So when did we start working on Low on Foot? That's the latest excellent LP from Slow Mass. When did we start writing? When did we start beginning work on it?
Yeah, so we've always been a band that's continuously writing. So there's a song on that record that I wrote in 2016 before the first EP came out. And then there's other stuff that was finished, in the weeks leading up to us recording it. But I would say that things started to like kick into gear during the pandemic. Like we were already regularly touring, and then when you get back from tour, everybody has to kind of like recalibrate their lives, work a bunch, settle back in, and then we would have another tour that we would all be practicing for, and like stopping and starting. That it was hard to like get back into writing mode, but our plan for 2020 was already to focus on writing. So when everything shut down, it was kind of a welcome environment to just focus in on it. So yeah, that was when like the intent of like, okay, we're going to like write as much as possible and finish a record. But we actually finished a couple records, so this is like one of 2 albums that was written during that time period.
One of 2 albums.
We have a whole other record that we are currently sitting on that will probably come out sometime next year.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, you know what? When I hear bands talk about how they were a band during the pandemic and just got together and write, I'm like kind of jealous. I'm like, man, I wish I had that. My current band got started right before the pandemic, but I didn't like the band at the time and I didn't want to be in it. So once the pandemic hit, I was like, oh, sorry, we can't play again for like a year and a half. Sorry.
That was your out.
I just, I just had other priorities at the time, and I just was not into it. So I pushed it off for a while. Yeah. So where did you record it? Did you have any hand in that?
There are some things on the record that were like from the demos that I recorded. But the majority of the album was tracked in Chicago at Palisade Studios by Scott Evans, who plays in Kowloon Walled City. And we were all huge fans of Scott's work and had done a little recording with him and some like mixing from afar, but that was like our first like real deal lengthy recording session together. And that was summer of 2021.
Do you record both albums in like one big stretch, or do you do one at one point and one at another point? How does it work?
So both of them were like, completed, or like, chipping away at the songs and writing intensely and demoing throughout 2020. But I would say both records were like relatively complete by the end of 2020. And the idea was, okay, let's take this one for the songs for Low on Foot and let's re-record them with Scott in a big studio and make a big rock record. But let's keep the like home recording of the other one and just have Scott remix those. So the other recording, I did all of that tracking myself.
Okay. So the other recording, that's like a whole other album, different songs, right?
Yeah, it's a quote unquote concept record, but I won't give much more detail than that because it's like it's more involved than that. And I think even saying that does not give the concept justice. But let's just say that like it was very unique to that specific project. And it's not like this other record where it's, like leftover B-sides or anything. They're like very distinctly like 2 separate albums written.
Okay. And I missed this part. Do you have to re-record the second album at a studio, or is that already in the bag?
No, we're just going to use the same recordings that I made and just have Scott remix them. So
okay,
those songs lent themselves more to that like home recording Elliott Smith-esque, vibe. So I
got you.
it made more sense to do that and do a big rock record for the one that just came out in a studio.
That's good. Yeah. 2 separate albums. Good. The double album thing is overdone, in my opinion. Look, we have Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. We love it. I love the M83 double record. I think there might be a Hammock double record. I forget, but that's enough. We don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah, I think the 43 minute, like 2-side LP length is just perfect. And, my favorite records follow that chapter A, chapter B format. So I'm very much in agreement.
Yeah, and it's 2025 and I'm older and my attention span is a lot shorter. So when I see 13, 14 songs, when I see songs 4 or 5 minutes, I'm like, what are you doing? It's 2025. We don't do this anymore. We do 9, 10 songs. We do 3.5-minute songs. Come on.
I mean, our songs are kind of a bit longer, I would say. Like, we have some songs that are like 5, 7 minutes, but yes, it's still like it could be a long song presented in a digestible way.
Yeah, and I'm riffing here. These are not rules I live and die by, but like,
Okay, sure.
All right, how about this? I'm talking about my own approach with songwriting. Like the band I'm in now, if a song goes over 4 minutes, that's like, whoa, we're like, yes, now it's crazy.
Okay, sure.
That's just me.
I like yes, so I got no qualms with that, but I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
So we have the album out now, right? I like it. How's the response? How are we getting a good response? Are good things happening?
Yeah, it's been great. Super sweet response. People are super happy that it's out. We just played last month. We just did 3 release shows with Prize Horse from Minneapolis and Downward from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the 2 Chicago shows, we had the shows at the studio that we made the record at. So we recorded all the sets from all the nights, and we're figuring out what we're going to do with those recordings now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking about, there's bands, right, where like the live recordings are a thing. There's like a million Fugazi live sets out there. We know about the Grateful Dead live stuff. I think Swans, there's like, their fan base is all about live recordings. Are you thinking about any of that for Slow Mass?
No, I mean, like, sure, it would be wonderful to like have like a giant archive of that sort, but this just seemed like more like a unique thing to do for these release shows, like to have them at the studio that we made the record and recorded. But no, I don't think we tour enough for a giant archive to like amass itself. And I don't know, I hear back some of our live recordings, and I maybe cringe at like mistakes and things that I make, but I also, I guess I wonder if like Ian and Guy feel that way when they listen back to the Fugazi archive, if like they cringe at something that I think is like otherworldly and magical.
I bet they do, because I've talked to bands on here who I love, who I absolutely love, and they're critical of their own work. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's a beloved record. And they're like,
Yeah.
I guess anybody, I guess most people do that with their music to a degree. I know I do. Like when I hear us live, I'm like, oh no, I could have done that a lot better.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're always going to do that from the creator standpoint, but yeah, I don't know. I was rambling.
So what do we have coming up? What is in the future for Slow Mass?
We have some shows in July with Ed Hockley and Genital Shame, who are both from Pittsburgh. We have some Midwest shows with them. We have some East Coast shows in October, some Midwest stuff in November, and then trying to figure out possible UK and Japan tours for next year. So trying to do more touring, but like I said, it's like the East Coast thing. It's like 5 shows, We're not at the point of age and availability where we're trying to book like a month on the East Coast like I would have in 2014. So it's still very strategic, if not even more strategic. Yeah.
It's apparently impossible to do that anyway, even for bands that are bigger. So I've found. A month on the East Coast, yeah.
No, I mean, booking agents wouldn't allow that in any way. You know, I'm the friends that I have that are on tour year round. I commend them, but it's a fucking grind. Other than that, like we have like a bunch of small releases that we're trying to wrap up and put out, and like we did a series of 7 inches throughout 2019 into 2020. So probably do something similar or another weird offshoot of that, and just kind of release a bunch of weird little things until this next record comes out.
What is your plan? Do you just want to tour as much as possible and play as much as possible? Do you have other aspirations in mind? How about that for you?
I mean, touring and playing is a lot of fun. I'm very thankful to do it. I'm appreciative of people who come out and travel to see us. Like, it's not lost on me, but the stuff that I'm excited the most about is the releasing of music and records. So we've put out all of our music on this Minneapolis label, Land Cole Portage. And they're a screen print design company that has like a small record label thing on the side. So, for example, our first record was actually supposed to come out on Jade Tree, and we had signed a contract with Jade Tree. We had gotten assets together. We were ready to announce the EP, and then they just went AWOL and couldn't get a hold of them. And by the time we got a hold of them, they basically were giving very vague descriptions that, not saying that they were going to fold again, but they were basically hinting at what happened way down the line, which is they were in the process of negotiating selling their catalog to Epitaph. But our record was almost tied up in that, and we just were like, well, fuck this. Like, we already booked the tour for the fall. Like, just void the contract. Like, we're done. And so I knew Dan, who ran Land. He used to live in Chicago. I hit him up that afternoon, and I'm like, hey, can you meet me after lunch? Can we hang out? I go over to his studio, and I just like give him the pitch where I'm like, hey, we were supposed to put out this record on J Tree. It's not happening with them anymore. We've already booked the tour. Would you not only be down to put this out, but like put it out like yesterday, like send it to the pressing plant as soon as possible? And he was like, yeah, I just did a poster for Dave Matthews Band, so like I'm good on funds. Let's do it. He just like sent it to the pressing plant immediately. So yeah, so he, like, long story of all of that, like he's just kind of been this like lifesaver, always helping us out with releases. And because he does, these giant posters for Fish, Dave Matthews Band, whatever, like giant, poster audience thing, that allows him to fuel like passion projects like his record label, where he can do really cool and beautiful packaging for our records. And yeah, just long story getting around all of that. Like, I'm so excited about the packaging and presentation of our records that he's able to put together. And it just continues to inspire me to produce more work and to continue to put out cool stuff, and, continuing to expand upon this body of work.
Yeah, I like that. I was on the website earlier and I saw all the show posters, a lot of nice ones, and I was like, wait, I thought this was a record label. And then I went to the menu and I saw, oh yeah, there's the record label and all the releases. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's was that a huge bummer when the Jade Tree thing happened? Were they still like, I mean, I grew up listening to Jade Tree bands. I loved that label.
Same,
was that still a thing when your EP was coming out?
So they had just restarted again, maybe a couple years ago prior. So they had done that Dogs on Acid record, and Spray Nerd and like a U Blue at 7 inch. Like they had done like a handful of things. And there was a friend in Philly that was working at the label, and I think he was kind of the person that helped like connect all of these bands to the old J Tree workers. Sure, it was a bummer, but I've also there's been so many strange upsets and things that happen in my life and happen in everyone's life that things happen for a reason, and you got to roll with it and you got to take the challenge. And, you know, I'm way happier that we did this record with Dan versus trying to force it on a label that was in the process of closing its doors. You know, that wouldn't have made sense. And yeah, they did what they had to do, and we did what we had to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, it sounds like you ended up in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan who runs Landland is an absolute angel and works so hard to make our records look way nicer than they should deserve to. So we're all very thankful.
Yeah, I want to take a look at their stuff again.
I'll send you some records. I'll send you a little care package.
Because it sounds like the label, my band came out on 2 labels, Iodine Recordings and Mind Over Matter, but it sounds similar to Mind Over Matter. Like, it's a small label. Austin puts so much into the layouts that it's just like, you know, when I saw the final product, I was just like, I can't believe how great this is. I can't believe this is ours. It sounds like a similar thing. I want to see more from them. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll definitely, I'll send you a care package.
Nice. Okay. Well, Dave, I love the band. I encourage everybody to listen to Low on Foot. It's excellent, but check out everything from Slow Mass, and hopefully I'll see you at some point. And Dave, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And there you have it. Dave Collis. Excellent conversation. I did not know Dave grew up in Philadelphia, so that's always great to talk about. And it was a great discussion. You know, for him, it was just a long path to finding his way to Chicago, to finding his way to Slow Mass, to finding that band, making that band, which became his main creative outlet. And I can find identification in that. And I like in the end how he said his goal was just to keep making music, to keep making records, to continue releasing records through Landland Cole Portage, that Slow Mass's record label. And that's it. Simple as that. Simple as it needs to be. And I feel the same way. Slow Mass are a great band, so make sure you check out their discography. Make sure you check out their latest LP, Low on Foot. And thank you so much, Dave, for coming on the show. So let's check in. How are we doing? It's been a stressful couple of weeks here. You know, there's just been a lot of changes this year in general. I didn't quite realize how sheltered of a life I have been living since the pandemic winded down in 2021. You know, my life basically consisted of sitting here, working on the show, going to work, occasionally leaving the house to go to meetings for recovery, and that's about it. You know, I would socialize sometimes, I would go to shows sometimes, but I was still very, very sheltered compared to how I am now. I work from home, so I'd be here all day. The podcast work is done at night, so I would work on that at night and during the weekend, and that was it for like years. I never made food for myself. Every meal was takeout, breakfast and dinner, or lunch if I eat it occasionally. I don't eat lunch very often. But slowly over the course of the past few years, things started to change. In 2023, I joined the Darling Fire, and that got me out and around people and dealing with people more. I was in a band again, which is something I wanted to do for a long time. We did a little bit of touring, so that was great to be out, to be playing again, to know that I could still do it, to be out around people and in the world again. After that, I took a big risk and quit to focus on my current band, Memory Entry, and you know, it wasn't very solid at the time. I don't even know if we had the full EP written, but I knew that I had to try this thing. So I stepped away from the Darling Fire and focused solely on memory entry, and that was a really difficult experience, getting everything written, getting everything recorded, getting to the point that we are now. In mid last year, I started working out, and that has really made a difference overall, physically, mentally, everything. So that's been great. And then playing in memory entry really rejuvenated me, especially that This Day Forward reunion show that I've talked about. That just made me realize how important my friendships are. So I started focusing more on my friendships. I started putting more effort in there. I started putting more effort in family and visiting them and focusing my attention there whenever I can. So it was just a slow process over the past 4 years of getting out of isolation and living life more. Another big recent change, not eating out for every single meal. See, here's the mistake I was making. I was making quick, easy, awful stuff for myself. So I was like, oh, your own food sucks when you make it. So let me just eat out for every single meal because I can afford it. Why not? And that was not a great idea. Not very healthy. Now I'm cooking more at home. Now I'm making my own stuff. Now I'm making better stuff. Or having help with making better stuff with my girlfriend. I've been in a relationship since earlier this year, and it's been great. And it is a necessity too, because if I told you how much I spend on eating out every month, you wouldn't believe it. And I can't afford it anymore. I can't afford anything anymore. Nobody can, because this country sucks. But that is a whole separate discussion. So yeah, I'm in a new relationship since earlier this year. That's a big change. I haven't been in a relationship in a long time, and I have someone else to consider besides myself for the first time in a long time. That's been a big change. I'm in a steady band again for the first time in a long time. That's multiple other people to consider, creative things to work through, business things to work through. The band is on a record label, 2 record labels actually. So there's things to consider there. Some things I'm dealing with for the first time ever in my life. So there's been a big change there. There's been a lot of big changes this year, but ultimately it's for the better. Because when I think about how I lived my life for the past 4 years, I don't want to go back and do that again. I do not. So yeah, it's been a year of big changes, but good changes, and I'm doing my best to navigate all of it while doing this show every single week. Speaking of the show, this podcast, I'm still going to do it. I talked about scaling back next year, which I am going to do to a degree, but I'm still going to do the show as much as I can, as often as I can. But starting next year, I will be building in some time off for myself. Doing it every single week is just really burning me out. And I have to have weeks off sometimes. I don't know when, I don't know how often, but the show will be here. I want to keep doing it. I love doing it. There has been absolutely zero shortage in incoming guests and people to talk to. I will keep doing it. There will just be weeks off sometimes. I've been running myself ragged lately. This is the first weekend in, I can't even tell you, where I don't have to do anything this weekend. And it is much, much, much needed because I am exhausted. There's been a lot of stuff going on between this show and the band and my normal life. Okay, so show recap. I was up in Woodstock, New York on July 23rd at Bearsville Theater to catch the Hot Water Music and Rodeo Boys tour. And Walter Schreifels was direct support on this show and one of the other shows, so I was really glad to catch it. I've seen Walter Schreifels live solo acoustic many times, and he is just phenomenal. So Rodeo Boys opened up the show. I caught the tail end of their set and really dug it. Next up was Walter Schreifels.
Something I do now. We come closer, closer, closer. One back. Temptations, they crumble by your side. And when you say you wouldn't hurt me at all, can't be sure that you mean it. If it's worth holding on to, we can't stay in between it. We can, I know you, hope that I do now. Communication's down, I know you, hope that I do now. We come closer.
The guy puts on a great show. It's a career-spanning catalog of songs, everything from Gorilla Biscuits to Youth of Today to Rival Schools to Quicksand. It's always a varied set, and he's a great storyteller too, and he's got a lot of good stories. So really, really enjoyed seeing Walter. And headlining the show was Hot Water Music. Just a solid band through and through. They put on an amazing, energetic set, and I loved it. I would say my favorite record by them is Fuel for the Hate Game. That's the one I know best. That's the first one I heard. I gotta go with that one as my favorite. How about you? Oh, and by the way, shout out Chuck. Very nice meeting you at the show, and thank you for your support of the podcast. So that is it. That is it for this week. That's everything I've got. I'm back next week with a return guest who you are definitely going to want to hear from. And my former co-host, Tommy, will be back for his annual return visit to the show. So I'm very excited to have him back. It's going to be a great time. So I'll see you next week.